Hello AP Scholars, we are looking at an example of doing file input for our Hangman program. Here is an example that I have on my website. It's pretty easy to find. If you go down to the object-oriented section of our course webpage, you can find the file input example right here. So just to take you through it, the setup here is that we are programming this inside of the puzzles constructor. And the idea is that when we construct a puzzle, it's going to load the list of words from a file. It should be called words.txt, and that needs to be in your folder. I believe it's in there already from the download from my website, but in case you don't have it, I'll make sure it's available for you on the website as well. But this is the story. Basically, you need to load a file using the scanner class. There's actually more than one way to do it, but the way we'll do it is using the scanner class. I'm going to come back to the TryCatch structure in a minute, so just keep that in mind. The first thing we're going to do is we're going to create a new file object. And a file object is basically just a virtual representation of this particular file. It makes an object that is attached to this file and will allow us to load it in the scanner. So we make a file object. I just call it file. And it is of type file. And then when we create a scanner, we're just going to send that file to the scanner's constructor. So it will be a scanner for scanning this particular file. And that should all just work automatically. I have this while loop here just to show you how you could go through line by line. So what it's going to do is it's going to start, first of all, checking to see is there more lines left. There's sort of an invisible counter of what line you're on. It starts on line 0 and it goes down all the way to the last line. So it checks to see are we at the end of the file yet or not. And if we're not, then we can scan in the word using scanner.next. That reads in a line of text. And if you look at the words.txt file, it's one word per line. I'm promoting it to uppercase, so they're all the same size, the same capitalization, but it's not important. And then I also just temporarily store that as a string. So this basically gets one word at a time, starting at the top of the file, then going down line by line, grabbing a different line which corresponds to a word. And then I add it to an array list. I have that right up here. Words is the name of an array list, and I'm just adding the word to the list. So by the end of this loop, we'll have loaded all of the lines of text in this words.txt file into our array list of strings, and each represents a word, so we'll have an array list full of words. And then scanner.close just closes that connection. So this is what I'm leaving for you to do. Once you have reached the end of that, you have a words array list with all the words. So now you got to randomly choose one out of that array list. And that's probably not too difficult. You have this array list. It has a particular size. Generate a random number. Use the get method to pull one of those strings out and make that your puzzle. Also, just to mention, all this stuff is happening inside of a TryCatch structure. TryCatch is basically a code structure that allows you to catch error messages. And file input has to be done in a TryCatch. It's just required by Java. You just can't do it otherwise with the scanner anyways. So we have this TryCatch structure. The idea is that if an error message is generated in the try block, then it will go down to the catch, and you can make a catch for each different type of exception. And for file input, you have to have at least catch the file not found exception. That's just a requirement. You can't do this any other way. It's not allowed. And I don't do anything in particular with it, but it's kind of interesting to know that you could make complex try-catch statements to capture all sorts of different error messages. And then instead of your program crashing, it goes down almost like an if statement to, did the code inside of this try block cause this particular exception? If so, run this code. So you can make your program respond to error messages. And crash more gracefully, or not even crash at all. Maybe continue on in some different way that it has accounted for that error. So, not a big deal. You'll have to put in the TryCatch structure, and it's not on the AP exam. TryCatch is not examinable, so at the end of the day, it's an interesting thing to learn about, but not going to be tested. So, just make it happen for now to get these files loaded and the words pulled out of the file and make your Hangman game more fun. And that's basically the end of the video. I hope you have a good time making Hangman work. I'll see you next week.